Today is Wednesday, June 26th, and there's a lot to talk about, like when to expect Robert Mueller to testify, conditions for migrants at the border, and the first presidential primary debate, plus the first city to ban e-cigarettes, more 5G on the way, and a new version of Airbnb. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in less than 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. It's official. Robert Mueller will testify on Capitol Hill in public. Politico reports the former special counsel agreed to show up after top Democrats in the House issued a subpoena. Of course, Mueller is the one who led the 2-year investigation into the Trump campaign and Russia, and the one who issued that final report. He's been reluctant to testify, saying last month that his report, quote, is my testimony. But the report was nearly 500 pages, and top Democrats hope to highlight some of his key, not-so-flattering findings about President Trump. Some say they prove the president did, in fact, obstruct justice. But some top Republicans say not so fast. They think this testimony will prove the president right and bring closure to the whole thing. And Fox News says they'll focus on questioning Mueller about anti-Trump text messages sent by a former FBI agent. President Trump hasn't said much about it at this point, but did tweet, quote, presidential harassment. Mueller's public testimony is set for July 17th. A couple things to tell you about what's happening at the U.S.-Mexico border. First, an uproar about filthy conditions at a Texas shelter for migrant children who were detained at the border. The AP reports children at the shelter were removed because they were being exposed to dangerous and unsanitary living conditions. Although some reports say some kids have been shuffled back to that facility now. And now the person in charge is stepping down. The acting head of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, John Sanders, will leave next week. But the concerns about the record number of migrant families crossing the border and what conditions they're living in aren't going anywhere. In fact, lawmakers in the House voted to send $4.5 billion in humanitarian aid to the border. It's meant to deal with the filthy and sometimes dangerous conditions for families and children detained there. The New York Times reports the vote to pass the bill was mostly along party lines. Some Democrats put restrictions in that bill about how children and adults can be held by the government, from time limits to safety standards. So a different bill in the Senate has fewer restrictions, and that one could get more Republican support. Neither has gotten all the way through Congress at this point, and the Washington Post points out lawmakers only have 2 more days to agree and send that aid to the border before they leave on a week-long recess for the holiday. The departure of a top border official is not the only shakeup happening this week in the Trump administration. There's a new White House press secretary. CBS News reports Stephanie Grisham will fill that role. She'll replace Sarah Sanders, who already announced she'll be leaving. Her last day is this Friday. And Grisham will become the Trump administration's 3rd press secretary in 3 years. Grisham is a familiar face, though. Right now, she's the spokeswoman for the First Lady, Melania Trump. She plans to stay in that role while stepping into 2 more jobs, press secretary and White House director of communications. The Hill reports Grisham is known as tough and a big critic of news media. While the White House says she's a fit for all 3 of her jobs, some critics think it'll be too much for one person. Either way, she's already getting started. CNN reports Grisham will join President Trump during his trip to Japan and Korea this week. The race to 2020 officially begins. The first Democratic presidential primary debate starts tonight in Miami. Not all candidates will get a chance to speak, though. Fox News reports only 20 of them qualified for this debate. 10 of the candidates will debate tonight, and the other 10 will take the stage tomorrow. We don't know what the topics are just yet, but the AP reports candidates will get 60 seconds to answer questions and have 30 seconds for a follow-up. Each candidate will get a closing statement, but no opening statements. It will all go down on NBC starting tonight at 9 Eastern Time. As we head into tonight's debate, Fortune magazine says Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren are the top 3 Democrats in the polls, with Biden taking the lead. But as we learned in last week's Thing to Know Thursday interview here on The Newsworthy, there's still a lot of time left for things to change. And if you want to keep up with even more news about the debates and what's happening on the campaign trail, then check out the Primary Ride Home podcast, another short daily show that's a great complement to this one. Illinois is the latest state to legalize recreational marijuana. USA Today reports it will soon join 10 other states in allowing people to use and buy weed, at least in small amounts. That's as long as you're 21 or older and buying from an established dispensary. And with the new law, some people might actually get their criminal records erased as well. Advocates say this is a major milestone and it'll bring in money for the state. Marijuana could be taxed as high as nearly 35% in some cases. But critics, including some law enforcement officers, are worried about things like enforcing DUI laws without the proper technology. This new law goes into effect January 1st. Of course, marijuana is still illegal at the federal level. Coming soon, an e-cigarette ban in San Francisco, making the city the first major U.S. city to do this. Here's the deal. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors unanimously voted to approve the ban. Now the mayor is expected to sign it. The city says the goal is to keep e-cigarettes away from kids. The U.S. Surgeon General has said vaping is an epidemic among teenagers. Of course, e-cig company Juul is not so happy, especially since its headquarters are in San Francisco. CNBC reports Juul is hoping to override the law by taking the ban to the ballot in November. The company argues the ban takes an option away from people who are looking for alternatives to traditional cigarettes. At least for now, the new e-cigarette ban is set to take effect in San Francisco in 6 months. All right, more news ahead, but first, a quick break for today's sponsor, and I'm excited to share some of my results from Ancestry. Ancestry DNA connects you to the places in the world where your story started with historical insights, but that's not all. For me, one of the best things was to amplify my results with a free trial on Ancestry to build a tree. That's how I learned about the people in my family's past, along with when and how they moved from place to place. For example, I learned for the first time ever that my maiden name was actually spelled differently before that part of my family came to the U.S., and Ancestry was able to track down an image of the actual ship my great-grandfather came over on with documentation showing he had only $7 to his name. Reading through the results made me feel connected to my family's history. So see what you find out. It's easy to get started. Go to Ancestry.com/newsworthy for 20% off your Ancestry DNA kit. That's Ancestry.com/newsworthy for 20% off your Ancestry DNA kit. Ancestry.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. Federal authorities are doing more to crack down on those pesky robocalls. Engadget says the FTC and law enforcement filed nearly 100 actions against companies and people who made more than 1 billion calls. It's called Operation Call It Quits. The FTC is charging companies for calling vulnerable people like senior citizens and pushing fake credit card services and money-making schemes on them. So far, TechCrunch says the FTC has fined companies more than $200 million and hopes the new action sends a strong message to the robocall industry. Starting this Friday, T-Mobile will start selling the Samsung Galaxy S10 5G. The phone is 5G ready, which means it can run on T-Mobile's new faster network. But beware, the $1,300 phone is not available everywhere. Customers can only buy the phones in the 6 cities where the company has made 5G available, like Atlanta, Dallas, New York, and LA. And even still, the new 5G network will be fairly limited. The Verge says it may only work outside. But when you do get on the 5G network, Fortune says the phone will run between 10 and 50 times faster than normal 4G LTE phones. T-Mobile says it won't charge more for the faster service, at least not right now. By the way, Verizon already sells the Galaxy S10 5G and is offering 5G service in Chicago and Minneapolis. AT&T offers the same phone to business customers. Airbnb has added some new rentals to its website, and they're fancy and expensive. CNET reports Airbnb is offering a new type of rental called Airbnb Luxe. Travelers can pick from 2,000 hand-picked high-end homes, including an entire private island, a castle in France, or a mansion in Bel Air. The rentals all meet strict criteria and even come with concierge services. As far as price, USA Today reports it will likely cost at least $1,000 a night to stay at some of these places. For the private island, though, it's more like $100,000 a night. Airbnb says there was an increasing demand for luxury properties. Breakdancing is one step closer now to taking part in the Summer Olympics. It's one of 4 sports expected to be added to the Olympic Games. Skateboarding, climbing, and surfing are set to debut in next year's Olympics in Tokyo. And now it's looking like breakdancing or breaking can start in 2024 in Paris. BBC Sports reports a final decision is expected on that one next year. Olympic officials say they want to add events that are more, quote, gender-balanced, younger, and urban. And that's it. You are all caught up for today. If you want to read more about any of the stories we talked about in this episode, just check out the homepage of thenewsworthy.com, click episodes, and look for today's date. You'll find all the story sources and links right there. The Newsworthy is ready for you to listen every weekday by 4 in the morning. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll be back with more news tomorrow. Have a great day. Hey, it's me again. Just one more reminder to check out the Primary Ride Home podcast. It's another short daily show like this one, but it's all about news from the campaign trail. And today and tomorrow have a lot of news from the campaign trail because it's the first presidential primary debates. So if you're a political junkie looking for something else to listen to after the newsworthy, Primary Ride Home is for you. Each afternoon, you'll get ongoing polling data, who's up, who's down, and what issues are getting traction over time. Just search your podcast app and subscribe to Primary Ride Home.